motherhood. 1 minute, you're mom of the year.
I love you, Mommy.
Then the next, not so much. From bath time to bullying, from potty training to puberty, parenting is full of challenges. But one thing is for certain, you are not alone. Welcome to Modern Mom Probs. I'm your host, author, mother, parenting expert, Tara Clark. Join me while we tackle today's modern mom problems. Alyssa, welcome to the show.
I'm so jazzed to be back, Tara.
I'm so jazzed to have you here. One of my favorite things about you, I mean, there's so many favorite things about you, but one of my favorite things is that you always say the word rad and you always say jazzed. And even in the book, the new book, I'll hold it up here, Big Kids, Bigger Feelings, you say jazzed a couple times. And I know that that's you writing it and that it's not Rachel, your co-writer, writing it. Because, I mean, I don't know Rachel, but I'm guessing that it's you saying jazzed.
Yeah, coming hot with that jazzed. In fact, when we were like teaching Seiji emotions, he learned the word jazzed before he learned excited.
I love that. I love that so much. I'm going to start to use that more often. I did say rad on a Zoom call the other day. I don't even remember who it was with, and it doesn't matter, but I said rad and I immediately thought of you because you're the only one that I know that says rad, and I love that so much about you.
I feel like it sounds like I am like a surfer that lives in California, and in actuality, I'm like an outsidey, not outdoorsy human who lives in Vermont. It doesn't feel like it's the right brand.
No, it's not the right word, but it is for you though, because I associate that word with you now. I like no longer associate it with surfers in California. I associate it with you in Vermont. So you have a new book out, as I mentioned. It's Big Kids, Bigger Feelings. It's the follow-up to, and I'm holding this one up too, Little Humans, Big Emotions, which I really loved. And this came out several years ago. We spoke about it on the podcast episode, so I'm going to give a plug to our previous conversation about that. But now this new one is for more elementary school kids and almost like heading into middle school. So this is between the ages of 5 and 12. What prompted you to dig in and do the research for this older age group?
Yeah. Well, after we published Tiny Humans, Big Emotions, we just got so many people who were like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. Wait, what do I do with my 9-year-old? Or how does this apply for my 12-year-old? And we also simultaneously were moving into doing a lot of work with elementary school programs. I had previously, I have a program through Seed and Sow that we support childcare programs and family childcare providers. And then we were moving into that elementary school space really by demand. We'd be supporting like a pre-K program in a public school. And they were like, oh, we need this for like our kindergarten or first grade or second grade teachers. So we started moving into that space more and more. And just saw like, oh, wow, yeah, there are some ways that we can really support regulation and emotion processing in this age group that isn't happening right now.
Yeah, I saw a need for that when my son was, I definitely needed it when he was younger. And luckily books like your own has helped me through that kind of stuff. But now that he's 12 and a half, like I noticed that mainly, I would say like third grade, it was really starting to hit, which when he was 9, but also too, don't forget, he was coming out of the pandemic. So that was like a return to school. So that was challenging too. So part of it was like, are we having a hard time because we're back in school full time, or we just came out of a pandemic, or is it just hard to have 9-year-olds?
Well, that's the thing. I think that like we're kind of sold this myth in parenting that the early years are so hard. They're so physical. They're so demanding physically, and that the teenage years are so hard emotionally, and that there's almost this like chill grace period between the early years and teenage years where everything's fine. And anyone who has a human between 5 and 12 knows they don't just like pause all emotions and growth to be fine and chill for 7 years. Yeah. And so I feel like that's kind of the myth. And there aren't a lot of resources for that middle childhood time. And that really, as we were looking around, because I'm a human who I'm not fired up by creating something that's already created. It doesn't do anything for me. for instance, when people talk about like teenage years, they're like, when are you going to write that book? I'm like, right now, turn to Lisa D'Amour's work. She has phenomenal work and resources for teenagers. Love her. I'm not fired up to create something similar to what she already has, you know? And when we were looking around at middle childhood, this was just a gap. There wasn't a resource for regulation and emotion processing in the way that we do it in that 5 to 12-year-old range. It is tough. There are so many changes that happen for these kids, namely that shift from independence to that shift from like codependence to interdependence to independence of like, in those really early years, they need us for so much. And we are their home base always. And we are what matters the most to them. And then they're in school, and all of a sudden, inclusion and belonging and peer relationships start to play a role that's new, and it influences their identity and who they find out they are as they continue to evolve. And it turns outward from the home, where before that, so much was under our roof and under our control and under our guidance. And now we're like, oh, wait, now they're hanging out with this kid and learning these things. And what do I do with that? What does that mean? Or are they losing part of themselves to be a part of this friend group? And are they changing the way they dress or the way that they want their hair so that they fit in? And what does that mean for us as adults? There's so much that shifts and changes in this time period that I think we absolutely need guidance and a resource for it.
1,000%. There definitely was a gap in the marketplace, for lack of a better term, in the marketplace for that. Yeah. And I know, because like I said, I have a 12-and-a-half-year-old. He's now on the outer edge of even what your book is talking about, but it's still fresh in my mind what he was going through in especially later elementary school, because it's hard to, group, let's say 5 and 6-year-olds with fourth graders, which would be, 10 and 11-year-olds. But I find that this book sort of leans a little bit heavier towards like that 9, 10, 11, 12 age than it does the early, 5, 6, 7, like early elementary age. And I'm grateful for that, because there's a lot of different developmental things that are going on in there. And it's interesting what you were saying about, for as parents to come to terms with your child maybe changing the way they look, changing the way they speak, to integrate with their friends more. And that may bring up some baggage that we as parents may carry with us from our elementary school and middle school years.
Yeah, kids are so good at bringing up our baggage, they really find it. It's so true. And so many of us may not have really reflected on our elementary years in this way. And then all of a sudden your kid's doing something, or they're not invited to something, or they're left out, or they're experiencing something hard. And there's going to be a part of us that wants to save them from it, because we know what it feels like to go through that hard thing, because we went through it.
Yeah.
And the us part of this is so huge. Like, okay, when do I step in? Do I step in? If I do, what do I do? What do I say? How do I help them become an advocate for themselves? All that jazz of like, we think of it as teenage drama, but it starts so much younger in terms of the peer relationship piece, and really helping kids learn how to navigate it and stay within their values. And the us part of that is so strong, because we're going to experience those triggers from our childhood, from the times that somebody made fun of us, or we were reading something out loud in class and somebody said something and we felt embarrassed, or we made a mistake, or whatever those things are that we all have. All of a sudden, those are going to start to come up in ways that maybe we haven't even thought of in decades.
And then they're faced like literally smack dab in front of you, and you have no choice but to deal with it one way or the other. And so that definitely, I know for us, was challenging, and something that I even still work through myself, to not jump in and help every little issue that he's having. I've learned now to take a step back. And I say this all the time. It's like, take a step out so they could take a step in, and giving them their own independence to manage their frankly, it's their lives, right? When it makes sense within parameters, obviously, has made such a huge, huge difference. When my son was in 4th grade, he was part of a group chat. Now, this is like a whole nother thing, right? So everyone had iPads, not necessarily phones. Some of the kids had phones, but his was on his iPad. And they were bullying him. And he said, stop, 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 please stop. And then they kept doing it. And then he lost it on them. They started like swearing and all of this kind of stuff. And I had asked, I'm trying to figure out how it actually all blew up. Well, when I saw it, and he was very upset, right? Mm-hmm. So obviously, naturally, as you would be, he had reached his limit. He just was like, absolutely, sure. I cannot deal with these kids anymore. And I went around and I called all of the moms. And I said, I just want you to know what's happening in these group chats, because I have always been very open and honest with him, that he knows that I especially at that age, those group chats are popping up on my laptop because it's all like the same Apple device. Mm-hmm. And so we're seeing what's going on. And every parent, except for one, took responsibility for what was going on and saying, we're really sorry about that. We're going to speak with our children, and we're going to, monitor what's going on. And at the time when they were 9, I think that was the right thing to do. Now, it's different when they're a little bit older, if that was happening at, let's say, 12 and a half or 13. So what do you think, or like, what would you suggest based upon the ages? Because like, as we're saying, totally. Like this 7-year age range is a big age range. So what may work when someone's when someone's 9 may not work when someone's 12.
Yes. Okay. Love this. So ultimately, just to zoom out for a second, my goal is to help kids learn what's their bag to carry and what's not about them. Right. And so because they're going to be adults and things are going to happen, or they're going to get in conflict as adults. And my husband will now say, like, is this a me thing? And I'm like, oh, no, I'm annoyed at something else. Right. But I'll take it out on him, and I'll be snippy or sarcastic or rude. Because we all do this. We get dysregulated, and we're not in a rational, like, I'm not like, this is the best way to handle this conflict with my husband. And it's because I'm dysregulated. And so knowing like this is something that's going to happen for life. And I want kids to know that there are going to be actions and words from other humans, because those kids are still learning something. They're still learning what to do when they feel left out, or when they don't feel powerful, or they're still learning what to do if they feel embarrassed or disappointed. And maybe making fun of somebody else then shifts that attention away from them, or gives them some power or control, right? And so my ultimate goal with kids is to teach them how to essentially like read between the lines and see what's going on to drive this behavior, and learn if it is about them. Like, is this something that I'm doing where I'm frustrated and I'm now making fun of my sibling, or I'm picking on somebody else? Cool. What tools are we still working on? What do we need to build? And if it's about somebody else that they're doing that to them, how can you respond in a way that's going to be productive and supportive for you? And I was chatting with a parent who has twins, and they're 11. And this boy had been making fun of, it's boy-girl twins, the girl, and talking about her body and just like making fun of her. And that boy's a friend of the boy twin. And the girl came home and was telling her mom about it and was upset about it. And her brother was like nearby, heard it. And then the next day went up to this kid and said, hey, if you're talking to my sister like that, I'm not going to be your friend. And the kid was like, and he was like, oh, if you are interested in talking to her, or you want something else, like, I'm happy to help you figure that out. If you're talking to her like that, I'm not going to be your friend. She's like, that's it. Right? Like, point blank. And I was chatting with this mom about like, what do you think gave him the confidence and the tools to do that? And she was like, we've always talked about Brene Brown's marble jar friends, of like, who do you really want to be friends with? And how do those people show up in your life? And if people aren't showing up in a way that feels good for you, here are ways to address that. And I think often we kind of skirt around things with kids to try and avoid conflict. And I love giving kids that like kind of point blank way to address something like, oh, were you saying that because you're feeling left out? Or did you want to have power in this situation that you didn't have? And really helping them address that and saying, I'm not going to let you treat me like this. I'm not going to hang out for this. I'd love to be your friend. I'm not going to stand for this. And giving them that language that's really assertive and to the point without going around it of like, oh, I don't like when you do this because it hurts my feelings and yada, yada. Sometimes kids are like, yeah, okay, that still doesn't meet that child's need who's still building the tools that they're trying to build of when they want power and control or they feel embarrassed. And being able to also say it to them in a way that won't induce shame or embarrassment. So the boy twin didn't do it in a group. He walked up to that kid one-on-one at school and said, hey, if you're going to do this to my sister, I'm not going to be your friend. Like not in a group setting where that other kid's going to feel shame or embarrassment, just very directly. And I think a lot of adults don't have these tools.
You took the words out of my mouth, Alyssa. I was just about to say that I know full-grown adults that don't have that power or that confidence. I would actually say I think it's the confidence that it takes to be able to walk to somebody in private and know that you're addressing it in a respectful yet assertive way.
Yeah, I think what we get to do is let kids know that it's actually usually more impactful in private. That if you say something in public and this kid feels embarrassed and they still don't have tools for embarrassment, they might then continue to say something rude or bully you. But if you go up and person to person, just talk to them, it's usually more impactful that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it absolutely is. Did the other child stop the behavior?
He did.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. See, that's the kind of stuff that, so my son now, and I'm so grateful for this, after that bullying situation, we actually removed him from the school that he was in and put him into a private school. And his current private school, it's called Acton Academy. And the whole thing is learner driven. So the adults never have anything to do with conflicts unless it's something so egregious and so severe that you do have to get the adults involved in. But everything else is managed amongst the children themselves. So they can call conflict, but that's what they do. They call conflict, they sit down and they talk face to face and they talk it out. And so they're getting the tools and the skills by the very nature of just like getting practice. They're getting the reps in to be able to do that kind of stuff where like when he was going to a traditional public school, they simply were not doing that because it was always the teachers being like, stop that, stop that, stop that. Right. And so the kids were not working through any of those things. It was sort of just like a Band-Aid, let's say. Right. And so the greatest thing we ever did
modeled,
Pardon?
You know, or even seeing it modeled. Right? Like in the private school, even if he never once initiates one of those conflict resolution moments, he gets to be then witness to how you have conflict, how you can address it, what it looks like, that you're allowed to do this, that it's not scary, that you can move through it. And what is it? Brene says it's like 7 seconds of awkward, right? Where like you're going to start it and you're like, can I make it through this 7 seconds of awkward to then be in the conflict with somebody and move through it? And it's conflict has become this dirty word and we all encounter it all the time. And if we don't have a skill set for it, it's going to be a real doozy for us in life. I also think we do a lot of work in school systems. At this point, that's the majority of our work is in school systems. And another barrier in schools is time. And for teachers and admin and the school culture, we say when we come in, like, listen, this is not a curriculum, it's a culture shift. And part of that culture is recognizing we can either put in time on the back end reactively and trying to address behaviors over and over reactively, or we can carve out time proactively throughout the day, knowing that behaviors are going to come up. Conflict is going to come up. We are going to need to tap into like social emotional learning not just in this one time spot that it's on your curriculum because that comes after math. Emotions also come up throughout the day, right? And so like, what do we have built into our systems so that you can say, we're going to pause this lesson and navigate the conflict?
Mm-hmm. I think that's the biggest thing. I think you really hit the nail on the head when you said it's a culture shift. It's not just like doing the curriculum to check it off the box and say like, okay, administration, we took care of this. Don't worry about it. Like, no, it really starts systemically to care about these children's social, emotional behaviors, because that informs everything else. Who cares how they're doing in math if they're so dysregulated that they can't even get through the class?
Well, and it will affect their math scores. It will affect their reading comprehension. That, I don't know if you've ever been like fired up or you're really angry at somebody. And now I'm like, all right, now figure out this puzzle. And you're like, I can't focus on this. Are you kidding me?
Yes.
And so like, that's where like also so much of our work, you find it in Tiny Humans, you find it in Big Kids, Bigger Feelings, is focused on regulation and understanding your unique nervous system and the child's unique nervous system, that what is regulating or dysregulating for one human might be different for another. I have 2 kids who are vastly different humans, and I married someone who has a vastly different nervous system from mine. He's what we call a details person. He's sensory sensitive. He notices if there's clutter in a space. He notices all the sounds around him. He can tell you how things feel, if it's too tight, too itchy, all that jazz. And myself and my daughter, so my son and my husband are like that. Myself and my daughter are not details people. We are sensory seekers, where I'm like, oh, talk to me. Tell me how great I am. Let me like give you a hug. Give me a massage for like 4 days. And I'm like, I want more, right? Like all of it. And when my son and husband are upset, if you talk to them and you try to validate their experience or you put a hand on them or offer a hug, they're flying off the handle. That is so dysregulating for them. And my daughter and I are like, give me all of that. And so much of this is also understanding, how does your nervous system work so that you can access regulation and be able to navigate conflict and show up with intention?
Yeah. Well, so my next question obviously is going to be, how as a parent can we learn more or get more in tune with our child so that we can help them in those times of
100%.
dysregulation?
Yeah. So this question has come up so much in our work with schools and with teachers and with families that we built it right into the book. We also just have this free resource available out in the world. If you go to seedquiz.com, there's a free questionnaire you can take. It's about 50 questions long. You can take it for any age group. Take it for yourself as adults. You can take it for any age child from 0 to 18. And it will let you know there's 9 sensory systems that we have. And I'll go through those in a sec, but it'll break down, of those 9, where do you fall on this, or where does a child fall from regulating to dysregulating, that each one of them is a spectrum. We'll take sound, for instance. For our kids who are sound sensitive, they like really notice those details of sound where they're like, oh, it's so loud. My son, he can hear like a lawnmower from 3 houses down. He's like, Mom, what's that noise? And I'm like, what noise? And
it's funny that you say that, because I just heard a lawnmower. I don't know if you could hear it. I heard it, and all I kept thinking was like, oh, the lawnmower.
I didn't even hear it. That's so funny.
See, good.
And the sound seeking is my daughter, where she's like, I want background music on. She's like jamming. And we get in the car, and it's this battle between them of one wants music on, the other one wants silence. Mila has no idea what silence is. She's never met it. She came out of the womb talking, right? Like, just bless. And so when we're looking at this, the questionnaire breaks down, where does this human fall on this spectrum from dysregulating to regulating? And then we put all that information together and tell you, like, here are some ideas or things that might be helpful for this child or for you. You want to know what's been so cool, Tara? This resource has been out into the world for a couple months now, and 75% of the questionnaires have been for the same age group, and it's for the adults.
No. Mm-hmm. For real?
Yeah, which is shocking to us. It's not what we expected.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought that maybe it would be for the Tiny Humans, Big Emotions group there, because parents may be desperate to try to help their young ones regulate or co-regulate. So that's super interesting.
What's so cool about that is you just talked about co-regulation. When we come in, right? If I come in and I'm like this and I'm like, Sage, what are you doing over here? And I come in with that energy, he's not going to regulate because his nervous system says, whoa, she's here to fight you. Do not let your guard down. Do not get calm. And this is truly just on like a biological level where we shouldn't let our guard down if someone's there to fight us. We have to be on high alert for danger. And so what's so key to our kids accessing regulation is us accessing regulation. That if I come in and I'm like, all right, buddy, I'm not going to let you take this from your sister. Or just this morning, there was a fight over the remote. And I was like, I'm going to hold the remote while we figure this out. And he's flipping out, and she's flipping out. And I truly, my whole job in that moment is to hold the boundary for safety and regulate my nervous system. That's it. And it means that they're equally flipping out while we find our calm together. But I can usually get them to be quiet faster if I come in with that like big energy, but really they're not in a regulated state. They just go into a freeze state where they're like, oh, shoot.
And then they're scared.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And we can't actually do much with a scared nervous system. When their nervous system is in that state, they won't retain stuff for the future. So if I'm trying to like teach them what else they could do differently or help them learn a new skill for navigating this conflict, it won't stick for the long term if they're in that scared state. Versus if I can help them regulate and access calm, now we can teach things for the long term.
Yeah. I think that one of the biggest, most underestimated parenting tips is to regulate your own nervous system and regulate your emotions.
Totally.
I think so many times people are talking about in this parenting book and that parenting book, and it's like, try the scripts and try this and have them say that and say that. And like, that's all well and good. But it really starts with you, and it starts with calming your own nervous system before you open your mouth to say just about anything, whether it's a script or it's not a script.
It's so real, and it's just harder, right? Because it's easier to look outside of ourselves and be like, this is a kid problem, not a me problem.
Yeah,
and
for
it's
sure.
harder to look at ourselves and be like, oh man, maybe I'm playing a role in this. But when I think of this too, as they're getting older, we look at things like lying or sneaking things around or whatever. I want my kids to be able to come to me when they've made a mistake, when they have lied, and know that I'm a safe place for them. Even if I feel disappointed, even if I'm frustrated, that I love them, that we can figure this out together. And in order to send that message, I have to not just say those words, but I have to practice it. And part of practicing it is them seeing that I can regulate my own nervous system. Because if they're afraid of spiking my anxiety or of making me disappointed and the unknown of like what might happen next if they do that, then they can't come and tell me those hard things. I can't be their safe place to land. So such an integral part of being that for them in their life is making sure that they see me both get frustrated, that there's not a world in which I'm like walking around in a Zen state all the time. That's not the goal, right? No. They're going to see me get mad and frustrated. And just yesterday, picked Sage up from school. We're driving home and I was like, hey, buddy, this morning, we had a hard morning and I was thinking about it and I made 2 mistakes. And he said, I know one of them. And I was like, oh, okay, great. And I was like, what's the one you think, you know?
That's amazing.
But I'm always coming back to them at some point and owning and having accountability for my actions and letting them know like, oh man, here's where I'm going to try and shift things, or this is what I did wrong. And this was the me problem, right? We talked about, I want these kids to know what's your bag to carry, what's mine. And in order to do that, I'm showing them, here's my bag to carry. This is my error. This is my mistake. And here's how I'm going to hold myself accountable for this. And then I let it go. Then it's not like I'm like carrying the guilt throughout end of time. Now I'm like, cool. They got to learn that you also get to make mistakes. Here's how you hold yourself accountable and move through this. And they know that I also am going to make mistakes, and that I have the tools to regulate and come back and repair with them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so important. Just the other day, speaking of like, goof ups, I am notoriously, what's the word I'm saying? I'm very regulated, like for most things, except for when something's about to spill. Because then I'm always like, oh, God. And the other day, my son almost knocked over a glass of milk, kind of like with his butt. I know that sounds weird, but it was just like the way that he was like, I don't know, whatever it was. It was on, this is what it was on the coffee table, and he was like bending weird from the couch. And I was like, oh, and he's like, what, Mom? And I was like, oh, you almost knocked over the milk. But like, it didn't spill, but like it almost spilled.
Sure.
And he was like, oh my God. He's like, you scared me. I thought there was like a wolf in the house or something. I was
so
like,
real.
I was like, yeah. No wolf. I was just worried about spilling milk. And that's something that I know that I need to work on, that anticipation of a spill. If that makes sense, right? And like everything else, like I'm okay with, but that's the one thing that I'm always like, oh, and I was just like trying to get his attention, but also like not making like his anxiety jump that he was going to get attacked by a wolf in our living room. But I did later on say like, I'm really sorry about that. Like, and he knows that I'm like that when it comes to spilling things. It's just, I've always been like that ever since he was a baby. But that's just something that I'm working on repairing.
I love that. And I was just watching this clip of Michelle Obama was on Jay Shetty's podcast, and she was saying how it's so hard to watch our kids make mistakes, because it's like you see that there's a wall there and they're about to run into it, and you're like, I want to stop them from running into the wall. And we know that they need to run into the wall. Right? We don't have to put up walls for them to run into, but they've got to run into the wall. And there's this instinct for us to swoop in and stop them. And I think some of our greatest work in our generation of parenting is allowing them to hit the wall. I think a lot of us experienced hitting the wall and not having a place to turn to talk about that, or to process the experience, or no adult that held themselves accountable, or any of the tools that go hand in hand with running into the wall.
Yes.
We just ran into the wall and
cried by ourselves in the room.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And so now a lot of folks in our generation are really working to step in and stop the kid from hitting the wall. And we've kind of swung that pendulum too far. I want to find that middle ground where the kid hits the wall and then we're like, oh man, gosh, that looked like it sucked. Right. And like,
that wall was really hard. I could imagine that would have hurt.
Totally. And we're here and we're just listening and providing those tools. And I think about this. One of the things for me isn't like being left out. I'm one of 5 kids, and there was always sibling dynamic stuff. And one of my triggers is like being left out or not feeling included. And so when I see it happening with my kids, I want to step in and make sure they're included. And I have to really override that to instead help them with the experience of being left out, and knowing that, sometimes they might not get invited to the birthday party or make the team, or they might experience embarrassment and not feel like they belong in a certain group. And that's okay. And that they can survive that. And the goal isn't that they never feel left out or embarrassed, but instead that they know what to do and that they have a place to process it when they do feel those things.
Yeah, because it's inevitable growing up. At some point, you're not going to be included in some sort of event. You had a great story in the book about a boy who tried out for the basketball team and didn't make the basketball team. And he was slamming the doors and he didn't want to go to school. Do you want to recount that story a little bit? Because I want to talk about that deeply.
Yeah, this is also a good challenge for me because I haven't read the book in so long now. I'm reading the audiobook next week. And so I was like, oh, this is great. All of it will be so fresh. but yes, let me just quickly.
I can totally. I mean, because it's fresher. I've probably read it more recently than you did. So
you
there was a boy.
Have.
Maybe his name was Jason. Let's just say it's Jason. He started dressing a different way, and he started dressing more like his friends in school, and he started to care more about what his friends were doing and what they think. And then it was time for a basketball tryout, and he was really reluctant to go. And his parents were like, "That's so interesting. Like, we thought that you really were interested in trying out for the team and being a part of that." And then ultimately, the parents found out that he was hesitant because he was afraid that he wouldn't make the team. And then if his friends do make the team and he doesn't make the team, then he's going to feel excluded. And so then he goes to the tryouts. He does not make the team. Obviously, needless to say, he's upset and he's slamming doors and he's crying in his room, and his parents are trying to help him and console him.
Yeah. This is like perfect for that running into the wall scenario, right? Where he wants to not run into the wall, right? He's trying to avoid the wall. And by trying out and not making it, he's going to experience the hard. And there are actually, my dad was a basketball coach, and we experienced this of like, we would get phone calls from parents to the house of like, my kid didn't play enough this game, or my kid should be starting, or yada, yada. And it makes sense as an instinct from us as parents to say, like, we're going to step in. And it's so hard to watch someone you love experience something hard that there's this desire to do and to fix it. And it is so much harder, yet so much more valuable to allow them to experience that hard and hold space for them, and for them to get to practice being in a hard emotion. So when he goes in and he slams the door in his room and he's all upset, we might also feel like, oh, you can't be slamming doors, you can't be rude, right? We might look at that behavior on the surface. And when we can translate for ourselves, man, what is driving that? God, he feels disappointed. He feels left out or excluded. He might feel embarrassed that his friends made it and he didn't. And if we can connect to like a time for us of that where we felt embarrassed, where we felt left out, where we felt disappointed or frustrated, what did that feeling feel like? And what did you really need from somebody? And that's what we lean into here. And that's where we go over and we're like, man, that sucks. You worked really hard and your friends made the team and you didn't make it. Oh, buddy. And just holding that space, not calling the coach to get him on the team, not trying to fix it, just letting him know that you see him and you get it. And then there's going to come a time where we get to let him know that this feeling won't last forever. He's not always going to feel this way. But right now, that if you provide that and you're like, oh, but you are going to have so much fun doing X, Y, and Z, or you're going to have so much more time when your friends are at practice. You get to do whatever you want. We're trying to like goodify it, right? We're trying to find the silver lining. We're trying to make him feel better and rush away the hard feeling, when the skill set he really needs is to know, I can sit in this hard and be in it without being consumed by it. And that's how I learn how to do that. This is like those nights where I'm like, hang on just a sec. There's a flying animal right here.
That's totally fine. We'll just cut that out, Bobby.
I killed it with my hand.
You're brave.
Oof. I used the current was there.
That's fine. We'll take it from right here.
Perfect. These are like the nights where when I've had a hard night, this happened just the other day. We're watching The Pit right now, my husband and I. And I was just like in the mood. One of those ones where like, if you gave me a hug, I would cry because it's just so close to the surface. And my husband started to talk to me about logistics for something. And I was like, no, tonight I just need to lay in bed after the kids are down and watch The Pit and probably have ice cream with sprinkles from my bed.
Yes.
And he was like, yep, Okay, great. And we get to lean into that with our kids of like, oh, bud, it's okay to feel this. Essentially, like, do you want to snuggle up and watch a show? Or do you want to play a game with me? Do you want to just hang? You want to go for a drive and listen to music? Like leaning into it's okay to be in this feeling and you don't have to do it alone. And I'm not going to rush you out of it. We're just going to be together in it. And then you will come out of it. It won't always feel this hard and this bad. I think we often make an error in that if it doesn't feel like a big deal to us, we act like it shouldn't be a big deal for them.
Mm-hmm.
And so, not making the basketball team, we have enough adult perspective to be like, yeah, he's going to be okay. This isn't the end of the world. This isn't what's going to end his life and his experience and his social group and his ability to be a part of a social group. We know that from our adult lens. For him, this feels like the biggest thing he's ever experienced. And allowing that to be true without dismissing it and leaning into connection and just being with them through the emotion without making it go away is so huge. You might find that then the next day they have school refusal where they're like, I don't want to go to school because they don't want to see these people. And you validate for them like, oh my gosh, I know that feeling. There have been so many times where something has happened, my friends, my coworkers, and it is so hard to show up the next day when everyone else is excited and you're disappointed. Just validating that and then saying, we're going to head to school and I know you can do this. It won't always suck like this. Today might be hard or parts of today might be hard. It won't always be this hard.
I'm literally going to take notes. I'm like actively taking notes. No, I am. But I also wanted to ask, because I think those are incredible points, but I also wanted to ask, how do you address the door slamming? How can you correct that behavior? Because obviously it's one thing to validate their feelings, but it's a whole nother thing when you are, possibly wrecking property. So how do you address that?
Yeah, I am not going to do it in the moment, right? So when they're having a hard time, I'm not like, also you can't slam the door just because you're having a hard time, right? Outside of it, when things have started to cool, that's where I'm going to be like, man, remember the other day when you were really disappointed about not making the team and you yelled and you slammed the door? I love you and I 100% get it. I know how crappy that felt and feels for you. And in our household, it's not okay for me to be mad and slam a door and yell at you. It's not okay for dad to do that. It's not okay for your sister or whomever. And that's part of our household rules. If you need help with what else to do when you're having a hard time or when you're feeling that mad, I'm happy to help you brainstorm some things so that you can be kind and mad at the same time.
Excellent. Excellent. That is so helpful because I know that that's been an issue with many other families that I know, and I've spoken to other middle school parents, and I think people are always trying to be like, yeah, but how can we get away from the door slamming?
Yeah, legit. And I think it's really just we try to combine two moments. We try to combine the door slamming moment with the emotional moment. And we have to separate those two things. What we're looking at here is this kid is having a feeling that's really big. And what I know by the door slamming is they don't know where to put it or what else to do with it when it gets that big. They're still learning how to do that. I can support their learning. I can't support that learning when they're in a dysregulated state. So I got to wait till they're back to calm and back to regulation. And then I can help them learn something else. It's like in the moment, if I'm having that hard time and I'm snappy and snippy with Zach, and I'm like, oh, no, we are not talking about this tonight. Like I'm doing the pit, whatever. And I'm rude to him along the process, which is often the case. It would be a terrible idea for somebody to pop in at that moment and be like, Alyssa, you can't be rude to Zach just because you're having a hard time. I'm like, get out of here. This
Just
is not the
go.
time. Correct. You're next. Right. Like that's where I'm at because I'm in a dysregulated state. But outside the moment, if Zach was like, hey, babe, I am down to chill and watch The Pit with you. You kind of been rude to me tonight, and I'm not digging that. Then I can take accountability for that and be like, yeah, I'm so sorry. You're right. I literally just said to Sage the other day, you know what I've learned, Sage, is that sometimes when I'm so frustrated or I'm so mad or I'm so hungry, the only kind thing I can do is say nothing. Because if I say something, it's not going to be kind. And we were on a drive home for dinner, and I was like, we are going home and dinner is waiting at the house. Right now, your body is so hungry that you are having a hard time saying anything kind. You can keep doing what you're doing. I can't stop you. I just want to let you know that right now, it might be the kindest thing if you just said nothing.
That's useful whether you're 3 or 4 years old or whether you're 34 years old.
Correct. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is,
but it's the in the
true,
moment
though.
piece that's tough.
It is. Actually, just yesterday, funny that you're saying that. I was having a hard time with some technology stuff. I had recently got a new phone and I have to like log into all my apps, and that's like such a pain in the butt. And like one thing was like really giving me a lot of trouble. And it was like more than 2-step authentication. And my husband saw me struggling and he saw how frustrated it was. And then like later on, when we went to pick up my son from school, he was like, you know, that meme with Arthur where he has like the little fist and it's like the fist on the side of his hand. He's like, that's what you looked like. And he's like, I knew to just leave you alone and not say anything until you worked through your issues. And I was like, thank you. I appreciate that. And he was like, yeah, I could tell you were just cranky today. I was like, yeah, I was just cranky. It started from like one technological thing to another. It was like every time I turned around, I was having some sort of tech issue yesterday. And that's just really frustrating. And I wasn't like being mean or like, you know, dysregulated. He just knew I was like just cranky. And he knew that the best thing to do was just let me work through that, which I did, even though I looked like Arthur with the balled up fists. But sometimes that's what the best thing you could do is just let someone be able to sit in their feelings and work through it.
And just help bring awareness for kids, right? That there's not a human on the planet that's just like kind and happy and regulated all the time. It's not our goal. Just the other day, we were going on a weekend trip, and on the way up, my husband and I were driving different cars. I was taking the kids up and then he was coming after work. And on the way up, I was like, man, I have been annoyed with my husband for the last 2 days and I don't even really know why. And as I started to think about it as I was driving, I was like, oh, it's all these other things that are happening. And I'm just, kind of cranky. And he's getting that. We say like there are places that get the best of us and our safe places get the rest. So school often gets the best of kids and I get the rest, right? I get that meltdown spot. I get the crash, and my husband gets the rest of me, right? Other places, I can't show up like this at work. Yes. I can't take it out on my employees. I can show up in a messy state at home and he's going to love me still. And so I'm driving up and I just like voice messaged him and I was like, hi, I'm so sorry. I'm feeling annoyed with you. I have felt annoyed with you for 2 days and I'm realizing now it's nothing to do with you. And I'm just like kind of overwhelmed with all these other details going on. And I'm going to try and move through that so that we can have like a connected weekend in this like family trip. And he wrote back and he was like, yep, noticed. And thank you very much. Looking forward to some connection. And I was like, great. Thank you. But that's
at least he was
like,
honest.
And I want to give our kids that gift too, right? That like you get to be grumpy. And I'll say it to my kids like, oh, you're having a grumpy morning. I have those sometimes too. And just allowing it to be okay without every single behavior being something we're going to address or talk about or dive deeper into. And that sometimes I'm having bigger conversations if it's a trend. But if there's a morning and they're grumpy and they're rude and it's not happening every morning and all the time, I'm just going to help get through that morning and move on.
Yeah. That's all you can do sometimes, right? You, like acknowledge it, you clock it, help them connect the dots if you're able to, and then just move on.
Yeah, I think sometimes we talk about things too much. And even with the door slamming, like if the door slamming is something that happens in that instance, but it's not a trend, it's not something that's happening all the time, I might not even address it. I might be like, oh yeah, he was the most disappointed he's ever felt and he slammed a door. Now, if he's every day yelling at me and slamming a door, yeah, we're going to talk about this outside the moment. But if it was, oh wow, this is the first time he's ever felt that level of disappointment and he slammed a door, at the end of the day, I've done way worse.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that absolutely makes sense. That's helpful, though, because I know that has been a concern or a consideration for other parents. And so I wanted to ask that. I'm going to ask you a question before we go. I ask all of my guests, what do you think is the biggest modern mom problem right now?
Overconsumption. I think that we are like, okay, wait, what is this family doing? What's that family doing? What's happening online with this person that looks so perfect? Or like this parenting expert said I should say this script and not that script. And oh no, I just said this and I've ruined my kid forever. Whew, it's so much to take in. Overconsumption that really, and what we're hoping to do in Big Kids here is help you see that bigger picture of what matters and what doesn't matter.
Yes.
Because not everything really matters.
No, it really, really doesn't. The longer that I've been a parent, the more I realize that so much stuff that I thought was important really is not important. And you have to pare it down so much because there are really only a handful of extraordinarily important things. And it's the health and well-being of your family.
That's exactly it. We're just hoping to help folks understand how their brain and body work, understand how their kids' brains and bodies work so that we can be in connected relationships with each other and navigate the messiness of that without the like, make sure you don't say this word or else they're ruined for life.
Yeah. To add to the parent guilt that we often feel.
And just stress.
So much stress. Like why? We don't need any more stress. We already live in a crazy modern world. We know what's going on. Don't add to any more of our mom guilt or mom shame. Alyssa, where can we buy this book?
Anywhere books are sold, and I read the audiobook as well, so you can snag that bad boy. And also going out on book tour. If you're interested, you can head to seedandsow.org and find where we'll be. And if anyone's interested in bringing this work to their kids' school, please let us know. You can reach out to us right at support@seedandsow.org, and we'll connect to your kid's school and see if it's up their alley and let them know how we can bring this work there.
That's awesome. I love that. Everybody go follow her, listen to the podcast, and go buy the book. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. I love you.
Love you. Thanks for listening to today's episode of Modern Mom Probs. I hope you enjoyed our deep dive in today's problem with me, your host, Tara Clark. Join me next time when I'll be interviewing another great guest and tackling another modern mom problem. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a review and a rating. As always, you could head over to Modern Mom Probs on Instagram and give me a follow, or check out my book, Modern Mom Probs, A Survival Guide for 21st Century Mothers, available online wherever books are sold. Well, that's it for today. See you next time, folks.